Hello and welcome, all you beautiful and lovely souls. It's Sapphire, or rather Vicky today. That's my persona. I'm here today to talk about something not controversial at all, and I'm sure won't ruffle any metaphorical feathers. In all seriousness and honesty, this is a video I've been hesitating on making. It's felt a bit like a dark secret that I've found hard to talk about, and I've fretted and worried about upsetting some viewers or even losing some friends. I worried about letting others down or being perceived as a disappointment in some people's eyes. But I think it's going to be good to get this off my chest and talk openly and honestly about this. The truth will set you free, so they say. I truly do believe honesty is the best policy, unless it's like a rude comment about someone's weight or age, for example. Better to choose silence if you have nothing nice or constructive to say. I also feel like it's important to start a conversation and a discussion on what we eat, where it comes from, how it was grown, raised, or cultivated and harvested. Why do we do so? Like, why do we do it that way? And the morality and environmental impact of our food choices, while keeping in mind availability and affordability of different foods and the importance of having a well-rounded and balanced diet. So the topic is why I went from being vegan to eating meat to going mostly veggie, but something in between. Now, I'm not here to tell people what to eat or how to live. Diet and lifestyle and what people choose to eat or avoid is, after all, a personal choice. Although many vegans may argue to the contrary, that it is not, because it is a choice that does affect other sentient beings. No, I'm only here today to speak on my personal experience with my diet and lifestyle and its relationship to my spirituality. However, I do strongly recommend you all eat less red meat, dairy and eggs, and more vegetables and more fruit, and less sugary beverages and less processed foods in general. Because if you happen to be a fellow American, I know our diets on average can be, well, trash. And there's a reason why cardiovascular disease and cancer are among the leading causes of death in this country. So I won't try to persuade anyone to eat a certain way or not eat a certain other way, or to try to ride a moral superiority high horse in this video, but I do strongly encourage you all to eat a healthier diet in general. Your body and your life will thank you. So, before I get into it, please take a moment to like this video if you enjoyed and want to support this content. Comment below to provide your thoughts and feedback. I'm sure comments will be interesting this time around, but please keep it civil and respectful. Please subscribe and turn on the bell if you enjoyed this content and you would love to see more like it. And even donate if you feel called. Namaste. So I first want to speak honestly and freely about my past as it relates to my diet and lifestyle. I was raised as a vegetarian and have long had a soft spot for animals, even wanting to save fish that people were fishing at a park one time. But the fox has also been a kind of spirit animal of mine for a long time. One of the earliest times this furry companion has come up in my life was when my cousin brought the fox up as a possible family crest or totem, and suggested the idea of getting tattoos of foxes. Nothing ever came of it, but I instantly connected with that idea. Living in California, unfortunately, the fox is a rare animal to see here. The gray fox does exist, especially in Northern California and in the mountains and woods, while the red fox does not. But unfortunately, I haven't been lucky to see any in the wild. However, I have long held a strong connection and fondness for foxes through literature, films, television, videos, documentaries, etc. The fox as a spirit animal symbolizes intelligence, adaptability, and cunning, often guiding individuals to navigate challenges with quick thinking and resourcefulness. It encourages observations and discernment, helping you to trust your instincts and make wise decisions in tricky situations. I think my life story probably demonstrates my cleverness, resilience, and adaptability. And I try my best to continue to exemplify these qualities, and I'm at my best when I'm embodying these traits. But the fox, as you may know, is an omnivore, eating small animals, small reptiles, amphibians, fish, insects, and small birds if it's swift enough, as well as berries, fruits, herbs, seeds, mushrooms, and grasses. So, as you can see, it's already setting the stage for a bit of a conundrum. Nature is, after all, a ruthless dog-eat-dog world. Forgive the pun. We humans may try to circumscribe our moral values on the natural world, but nature doesn't care. Wild animals ultimately only care about doing what it takes to survive and reproduce, and a wild omnivore has got to eat. Anyway, I've been vegetarian all my childhood, but at around 20 years old, I made the choice to go vegan for environmental and moral reasons. I even have a tattoo I got several years back. I will show that to you right now. There it is. So I got the V for vegan, and it's like growing a sprout, a shoot, and blossoming into a beautiful mandala with the Om sign in there. For a good while, that tattoo, it served as a reminder of my dedication to the vegan cause / lifestyle, if you will, while also being a symbol of my spirituality. However, lately, it's kind of been feeling like having that tattoo, I felt like a little bit of a hypocrite, but you know, people go through changes throughout their life. That's just how it is. That's just part of life. You know, at heart, I still, you know, very much care for and value the lives of animals, and I try to, you know, let my life be a testament of that, basically. And the V, well, I'm still mostly veggie. Now I am, anyways. I'm mostly veggie. You know, just a little bit of stuff here and there, and I'm going to get into that shortly. Additionally, I was already a bit of an activist for the environment, animal rights, and human rights, and I only became even more of one upon connection with a local on-campus animal rights organization. So what is veganism? What does it mean to be vegan? It's basically a least harm type of lifestyle. It means not having any sort of meat or dairy products, or you know, any animal products at all. Not consuming or buying any type of animal products. Also not consuming or buying any products that support animal testing. Products that have been tested on animals and are now available for consumption. So all of that. And the you know, the reason, the rationale behind that is because vegans, and there's a scientific basis for this, but vegans view the vast majority of animal life as being sentient. And sentience just means they can feel pain, they can feel pleasure, they can feel a variety of different sensations. Basically, they are aware of their environment on a very real and tangible level. And this is something that is actually different from say, plants or fungi, because, plants and fungi, they basically are just reacting to chemical stimuli or stimuli from the sun, photic light stimuli. They're just reacting to those environmental cues, that stimuli. They are not, as far as we know, they are not feeling any pain. They don't have nervous systems of any type. They can chemically signal and communicate to their neighbors in the plant and fungi kingdom, but as far as we are aware, they don't feel any pain or suffering, and they don't feel any pleasure. They're just reacting to the chemical stimuli of their environment. Vegans are trying to minimize any pain or harm that us humans cause to those sentient animals. And veganism, or at least true veganism, you can contrast with just being plant-based. And just being plant-based means you're eating a purely plant-based diet. No meat, no dairy, no eggs. But a plant-based consumer, for instance, might buy something that is contributing to animal testing, something that has animal byproducts in that. But for whatever reason, most likely for health reasons, they choose to consume only a plant-based diet. They choose to eat only a plant-based diet. But as far as their other choices are concerned, they more or less don't care. Whereas vegans, they, evaluate all of their choices of products and goods, and it's not necessarily, an exhausting thing, because I lived, 11 years that way, and that wasn't a problem for me. It was just became second nature after a very short while. You do check ingredients lists, and you do look for that bunny seal that says no animal testing, but it's actually not a hard lifestyle to maintain once you get going in it. And with that, I'd also like to provide a brief argument in support of the environmental and moral cases for being vegan. Pound for pound, meat and dairy versus plant-based choices, plant-based foods. Vast majority of time, those plant-based choices are going to be much better for the environment in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, in terms of land used to grow that food, in terms of water used to grow that food. All different metrics. The vast majority of the time, plant-based foods are going to be much better and have a much nicer, smaller footprint on the planet versus meat and dairy, for example. And I'm not going to necessarily cite that in the description of this video. You can go online and Google it, and it's there. The vast majority of plant-based choices are better for the environment, and on average, a vegan diet is much lower in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, or a contribution to greenhouse gas emissions, than a standard American meat and potatoes based diet. And as far as for the moral case for being vegan, I kind of already got into it. It kind of logically flows, to be honest. To not consume meat and dairy and eggs and any other products that may have contributed to harm to sentient animals, it does seem like objectively a more kind, more moral choice, and more compassionate choice to make for those sentient animals than otherwise, to just buy meat, dairy, eggs, and whatever, and forget about it and not care. And the other part of that argument is that we don't necessarily have a need for meat and dairy. We don't have to consume that to live a healthy life in this modern age, in this modern day, where we have, agriculture that, for the vast majority of us, provides plenty of plant-based options. So given that there's no need to consume meat and dairy and eggs, etc., but to do so would cause great harm potentially to sentient animals, harm that you could otherwise mitigate by eating a plant-based diet, by being vegan. The argument does seem to flow logically right there, doesn't it? And I must acknowledge that humans biologically and paleontologically are omnivores. Although our primate and ape ancestors were mostly vegetarian. But thanks to the art, science, skill, and social organization of modern agriculture, most of us have plenty of plant-based foods available to us, and we could choose to be vegan and live healthy and fruitful lives so long as our diet is well-rounded. Of course, hunter-gatherers still exist, and I have nothing but respect for them. They are, after all, far more in tune with nature and her rhythms and cycles and her ebbs and flows of natural abundance and scarcity, opportunities and dangers than I could ever hope to be. But most of us have an abundance of plant-based options for food at our fingertips. And we humans have the capacity for moral reasoning, unlike wild animals. So we have a moral obligation to be vegan, and our planet could easily support not only the current population, but a couple more billion if everyone went vegan, with reduced environmental impact and greenhouse gas emissions if everyone went vegan. So the argument for veganism goes. After all, if we can do better, don't we have a moral obligation to do better? It does seem to be pretty sound reasoning. Paraphrasing Maya Angelou here, if you don't know better, nobody can blame you. If you do know better, you ought to do better. Anyway, continuing on with my story, I was vegan for about 11 years until recently, and I've been sometimes active, sometimes inactive, participant in the activist community the whole time. As some of you may be aware of, I even participated in the Yes on Measure J campaign last year to raise support for a measure that would have banned factory farming of animals in the county if it passed. My current partner is not an activist and was not raised vegetarian or vegan, but they also went vegan for 4 years on account of me. So it might sound crazy, but a couple of years ago, I started to get into the spiritual and magical practice of shifting or shape-shifting. Or at least I started entertaining the idea of it by way of my partner and one of their online groups of friends. So what is shifting or shape-shifting? In mythology, folklore, and speculative fiction, as well as certain branches of spirituality and magic, shamanism, shape-shifting is the ability to physically transform oneself through unnatural means. But it can be to mentally, emotionally, and spiritually change and assume the identity of said being or animal, rather than going through with a full-on physical transformation as well, right? But yeah, physically or mentally, spiritually transform oneself through unnatural means. The idea of shape-shifting is found in the oldest forms of totemism and shamanism, as well as the oldest existent literature and epic poems such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Iliad. The concept of shape-shifting remains a common literary device in modern fantasy, children's literature, and popular culture. Examples of shapeshifters include changelings, jinns, kitsunes, vampires and werewolves, along with deities such as Loki and Vertumnus. And with that brief description of shapeshifting, I would like to share an article by Dr. Stephen D. Farmer called The Art of Shapeshifting. I feel the wind flowing around my wing feathers as I float in the air, suspended by the invisible breeze. I look down and see the forest below me and then briefly towards the horizon. I flap my wings a few times, moving into the flow of air and soar even higher. My human body is somewhere, but I pay it no mind right now. My consciousness is here, now, in this other physical being. I am Hawk. We hear folk tales and fairy tales that describe how men and women transform into animals or vice versa. The Frog Prince comes to mind, as does the Irish tale of the Selkie, as in the movie The Secret of Roan Inish, where a seal comes to the land and shapeshifts into a woman. A young man falls in love with her, hides the sealskin so she won't be able to return to the sea, and they marry. Reminds you of a certain childhood fairy tale and film, doesn't it? Of course, The Little Mermaid. Yet she pines to return to the sea and eventually finds the hidden skin, puts it around her like a cloak, and immediately shapeshifts back to being a seal. Other tales abound of humans who become wolves or other animals, such as werewolves or were-tigers, a recent comical version being the Nick Parks movie Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Children playing will spontaneously growl like a bear, spread their arms as if in flight, or crawl along the ground lizard-like. As adults, we often smile and take delight in observing children in these games. And if we tap into our own inner child, we may even join them. We'll tend to write this off as a kind of play, as childhood imagination. But in doing so, however, we denigrate the incredible power of imagination and how it can open up realms that are beyond the usual senses. Consider imagination as extending beyond our immediate physical self and consciousness into the energy field of the world around us, and different dimensions and possibilities may become available, ones in which we may extend ourselves into. There are many stories of shamans who have mastered this ability to shift their form and consciousness into animal beings because they have not limited their imaginative capacity to the degree that those of us in modern civilization have been conditioned. Indigenous people not only lived in the natural world, but were of it, and intimately connected to the earth beings, both physically and spiritually. Shamans had a particular gift of being able to transit across the usual boundaries of the self by sending their soul or consciousness via the shamanic journey into non-ordinary reality. There they would contact various spirit guides, including spirit animals that assisted them with sustaining their tribe or community by helping them with healing, finding food sources, weather, magic, and various other kinds of guidance. Shamans had a special relationship with an animal spirit guide that was their power animal. They often had more than one that served to guide and protect them in both ordinary and especially non-ordinary reality. They were known to shift their consciousness into the body and being of that animal, sometimes actually becoming the animal while still retaining their primary human consciousness. They would also commonly allow their power animal to cohabit their human form so their power animal could experience what it was like to be human for a while. This mutual arrangement was a way of honoring their power animal and deepening their relationship. The art of shapeshifting was a fact, not merely a theory or fantasy. With the increasing interest and practice of shamanism in the past few years, more people are learning how to journey and discovering their power animals. Yet, you don't have to be an expert at shamanic practices to get a sense of what shapeshifting is all about. You just have to be willing to open up your mind, your heart, and allow your imagination to lead the way. One simple example is to try to call on any animal spirit guide with whom you have an affinity. Doesn't have to be a power animal. Sit or lie down, close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths, and invite this animal spirit to come into your body and your consciousness. Notice how you feel. Can you feel the fur, feathers, or skin of the animal? Can you see with their eyes? Hear with their ears? Any emotions come up? Just simply observe all of this for just a few minutes, then thank the spirit animal and release them. The power of imagination is limitless and is what will help us remember our forgotten intimacy with all of life here on Earth. Shapeshifting to any degree is one way to help us rediscover that memory on a very profound level. Getting back into it, I was given some exercises to try and practice consistently and told if I did them, I really could shapeshift. I chose to start literally trying to think, act, and live like a fox in my free time. So that involves starting to eat some meat. I started eating a little chicken, a little turkey, some eggs, some fish, and seafood from time to time. Really just a few meals, a couple of times a week at most. But because of how much animals and their well-being still mattered to me, I chose to buy only humane raised meat and eggs. Because of my Hindu connected spiritual path, beef being forbidden in Hinduism because cows are considered sacred, and because how I felt about eating meat from such intelligent and sensitive animals, I also chose to continue to avoid eating red meat. Hopefully, I haven't lost too many of you here. I realize how crazy and even ridiculous the idea of shape-shifting and actually trying it may sound. But it is something that I genuinely believed in, and I gave a sincere go for a time. I think part of it may have been some kind of escapism. I was feeling more connected with nature and the idea of literally being a non-human animal rather than putting up with this human existence and how difficult and mundane it can be. Anyway, doing so, eating that meat and seafood, it didn't upset my digestive system actually. The only things that really have are dairy products and garlic and onions. You know, with dairy products, I think my digestive system has become so accustomed to not having dairy products that, you know, having them again and being exposed to that lactose is just ruinous, you know? When I did this shape shifting, when I tried doing it, I did not have dairy at all. So don't worry about that. But I did have dairy several years back when I was already vegan. It was on accident, and I found out when I, you know, paid for it later, just to say that. But also garlic and onions. So, you know, plant foods there, but garlic and onions are absolutely something that can greatly inflame and upset my digestive system as well. So I tried to avoid that as much as possible. So yeah, I continue to not have any dairy and have as little garlic and onions as possible, although they are hard to avoid at times. I more so had some apprehension about eating what or who I had for so long considered my friends and fellow sentient beings. This gradually faded with time, but it later came back with a vengeance, so to speak. I also continued to stay away from non-food products containing animal byproducts or tested on animals as much as possible, although that can be hard fully avoiding these things when you're poor. So I continued on that way for the past couple of years, eating the occasional meat or seafood and eggs a couple of times a week. And I also simultaneously was continuing on my spiritual path, my spiritual awakening discovery as well. And last summer, I had a spiritual awakening that unfolded in several episodes. I felt myself becoming more in tune with universal consciousness and the energy of all sentient beings, human and non-human, and otherworldly beings in the universe and all around me. I also began awakening to the harm and pain I may have been causing to the affected animals by choosing to continue to eat their meat. I saw some visions of their pain and suffering and felt just a little taste of their pain. I felt sorrow and regret. I felt bad for these animals and for what I was doing to them, albeit indirectly. In all honesty, I felt immense sense of love for all beings, but I now began to also feel some real guilt and began to somewhat selfishly ponder how this may be affecting my karma. I started to feel the need to change my ways and do better. But I still didn't give up on the idea of shape-shifting, not at first anyway. One day soon after these initial episodes of spiritual awakening, my mind went to a Buddhist story I had read many years back about either a vegetarian dog or cat. I had thought it was a dog, but I was doing a little research earlier today, and I couldn't find any such Buddhist story about a vegetarian dog. I kind of wonder if that's because vegetarian dogs are so commonplace, relatively speaking, especially these days, because dogs are, of course, domesticated, not wild animals, omnivores, and not obligate carnivores. So they can easily and healthily live on a well-balanced vegan diet, so it's not especially remarkable. Cats, however, are literally a whole other animal. They are obligate carnivores. While they certainly can eat some plants, they generally have to consume at least some meat to get by, to live, and be healthy. While they are hard to come by, there are now vegan formulations of cat food out there, but they are supplemented with taurine and other vitamins, usually only available to cats in meat. But as it so happens, when I was doing my research, I found not one, but two, hard to do that, not one, but two Buddhist stories of a vegetarian cat, which kind of blew my mind. The first story comes from South Korea. There's a story about a vegetarian cat named, it's these Korean characters, I don't know how to read it, but it means free oneself, who lives in a temple with nuns. This cat prays daily in the prayer hall, follows the rules set by chief nun, and has not eaten meat since being rescued, showcasing a unique bond between animals and Buddhist practices. And that comes from the monk Tsem Rinpoche. And the second story is more involved, more elaborate. There's more details to it, so I consider it possibly to be more so real than the other story from South Korea, but who knows, honestly. But this one comes from an article in environmentalrave.com. It's called Hetal, the Buddhist cat, the feline monk who chose enlightenment over fish. In a quiet monastery in Myanmar, where monks dedicate their lives to prayer and meditation, a unique spiritual figure has emerged. Not a human, but a cat. Hetal, the feline monk, has captured the hearts of many with her serene presence, unwavering discipline, and a surprising renunciation of all worldly pleasures, even cat snacks and fish. A cat's journey to enlightenment. Hetal's story is one of fate and devotion. She lost her mother as an infant, left alone in a world where survival is a challenge for stray animals. But destiny had other plans. The monks at a Myanmar temple found her, and instead of leaving her to the uncertain fate of the streets, they took her in. Under their care, Hetal grew up not as an ordinary cat, but as a contemplative soul immersed in the peaceful rhythms of monastic life. Unlike most cats who are known for their love of hunting and snacking, Hetal has shown an extraordinary sense of restraint. She refuses to eat fish and does not choose to chase rats. In one remarkable instance, a monk witnessed her gently stepping on a rat, only to release it unharmed, a silent testament to the principles of compassion and nonviolence that she seems to have instinctively adopted. The Bodhisattva cat who prays in silence. Visitors to the temple often find themselves mesmerized by Hetal's ability to sit still for hours, appearing deep in meditation. She seems to embody the Buddhist ideal of detachment, exuding an aura of peace that touches everyone who meets her. Many who visit the monastery see her as a symbol of patience and endurance, a bodhisattva in feline form. The monks of the temple describe her as being a being of pure tranquility. She does not beg for food, she does not seek attention, and she maintains an aura of quiet wisdom. The only affection she willingly accepts is a kiss, but only from a chief monk. A symbol of inner peace, Hetal has become an inspiration beyond the monastery walls. In a world driven by desire and materialism, her simple life serves as a lesson in mindfulness and contentment. Her presence has led many visitors to reflect on their own lives, reminding them that true fulfillment is not found in indulgence, but in inner peace. Her story has spread far beyond Myanmar, touching the hearts of cat lovers, spiritual seekers, and those who believe that wisdom can manifest in the most unexpected forms. Hetal, the Buddhist cat, continues to live her days in quiet meditation, embodying a message that speaks louder than words. True peace comes from within. For those seeking a moment of calm, visiting Hetal at the temple is not just the chance to meet a remarkable cat, it is an opportunity to glimpse a bit of enlightenment in feline form. Of course, these are anecdotal stories that have to be taken with a grain of salt, and who's to say that these cats didn't sneak a mouse or a rat or a bird or two when the monks weren't looking. But they are still interesting stories nonetheless. And it is just these such stories that my mind went to several months ago. I thought maybe it is possible. Maybe I can still pursue this shifting business while following an enlightened spiritual path in alignment with renewed compassion, empathy, and moral values. After all, I'm not a wild animal. Foxes are, yes, but a human attempting to shapeshift into a fox is not. Unlike wild foxes, I don't have to eat meat to survive, and I don't have to eat meat to continue to practice shapeshifting. As a result, I began to gradually consume less and less meat, such that I haven't eaten any significant amounts of meat in a few months. I only continue to eat eggs and some other foods with animal byproducts way down in the low in the ingredients list. A few times a week, in addition to continuing to eat plant-based foods, of course. But it is hard to go back to being fully vegan, even if I was absolutely determined to do so. Why? Because of the price of food, availability of certain foods and certain products at stores I frequent, and being relatively poor. Yes, certain plant-based foods and products are cheap, such as beans, rice, lentils, tortillas, bread, potatoes, and other vegetables. But plant-based faux meat, faux dairy, or faux egg products are often more expensive than the real deal, and sometimes hard to find at bargain slash discount grocery stores. And the same goes for products free of animal byproducts or animal testing. I can usually find what I'm looking for at a reasonable price, but not 100% of the time. Things are certainly getting better for plant-based products as far as the availability and price point relative to other products goes, but full vegan strictness is hard to live by when you're struggling financially. Well, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Please respectfully let me know your thoughts, feelings, and feedback in the comments below. And to cap it off, I must answer the inevitable question, am I still going to try to shapeshift? Wait and see, and maybe you'll find out. In all seriousness, no, I won't. I kind of gave up on it several months ago, a few months after I became determined to reduce my meat consumption, but still try to do it. I don't think it was because my fox-like nature faded as I gave up meat. I think it's more so because I just gave up on trying. On the one hand, yes, I wasn't seriously and consistently trying, giving it my all and practicing the exercises that were being recommended to me to try. On the other hand, or on the other paw, during the brief periods when I was seriously trying, I saw no results. Nothing seemed to be affected or seemed to have changed other than my internal demeanor. No external results to speak of. So sadly, I stopped trying and my belief in the shape-shifting practice slowly faded away. I started to regard shape-shifting as I see it now, as a fun idea, but all but impossible in reality. Some rare other individuals out there may have tried it and succeeded at doing it at some point, but they're doing a good job controlling it and hiding it, honestly. But if anyone has succeeded at this, I get why they would hide. For fear of the spectacle and attention of being seen shifting from human to an actual animal, or being seen like a half animal, half human in public, and fear of possibly being abducted and tested on. Maybe shapeshifting isn't even meant to be taken literally. Maybe it's just a state of mind, an altered state of consciousness, whether under the influence of some substance or in a state of deep trance. For example, shamanism. Or maybe it's just an interesting and elaborate way of connecting with one's spirit animal and spirit guides. Maybe the truth behind shifting will be revealed to me in divine timing. Maybe it will remain forever a mystery. Regardless, I will continue to connect with my spirit animal, and dressing as my persona is one way that I enjoy doing that. Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking with me if you're to the end, if you're still here. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and a ciao ciao from Veggie over here. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful rest of your day and wonderful life. Thank you so much for tuning in. Namaste. Blessed be, and go in peace.